During a 710 KNUS radio interview with CIO's own Craig Silverman, the lawyer of the former City of Denver employee Wayne McDonald noted a new lawsuit may be on the horizon. According to Westword, William Sultan claims that Hancock's recent mentioning of McDonald firing may have violated the initial agreement. Patty, we have to give you credit first off. You're the first person to say there might be some more news to talk about. Last week we thought we'd be done with it. We're certainly not. From what you can see, the different stories that came out this week between the City Council possibly looking at an investigation after the victim said it wouldn't be a problem, and what we heard on the Silverman show, your thoughts?
Well, the most significant thing last week was when the council sent out a letter saying we're not going to recommend an investigation, among other things that would be re-victimizing the victim, without talking to the victim, which we saw her talk to Tony Kowaleski this week, and she said, no, I would like an investigation. And what we have to remember is an investigation isn't necessarily a witch hunt. It's just a search for the truth. And in fact, if they get to the bottom of things, it'll shut things down if they don't find anything worse. And it'll let us actually get onto the big issues in this city before the next election in May 2019. But there are certain issues we certainly need to look at. I talked about it last week that Wayne McDonald was moved off the security detail more than 2 months before he was fired. So clearly something was going on there. When she got the settlement, but he was already gone. She got it a year later. And Kerry Kennedy, who was then the chief financial officer of the city, didn't know about the settlement. Now there's a reason, because there's a whole little fund you can use for settlements in the city of Denver that the chief financial officer doesn't have to sign off on. But I think we want to know about that. We want to know why Wayne McDonald got $200,000 and still feels he's got a reason to sue. So it's not just an issue of is this sexual harassment or not. It's, are we hiring the wrong people and then paying way too much to get rid of them?
Mm-hmm. David, you're the esteemed lawyer at the table. So we had a lawyer talking to a lawyer on a radio talk show. So I take that with a huge grain of salt. But are there some legal issues there, too, that we should be considering as we look at this issue?
Well, the Craig Silverman's show is actually serious discussions with high-quality lawyers. It's not like having Gloria Allred on that nutty show on Headline, Nancy Grace. That has no. You'll be stupider after you watch one of those. And if you listen to Craig's show, you'll learn more. This is important news. It shows my political prognostications are sometimes wrong. Because last week I said things were over, and then the victim stepped forward and said, no, just like Patty said, I would like an investigation. As she said, and Westword is one of the things that's filling the gap by the slow strangulation of the Denver Post to really report on City Hall. I think that there's certainly going to be an investigation now, and who knows what it will turn up. Based on the evidence we've seen so far, maybe not much, but as she also said, there's so much that's opaque about the Denver city government that you can have this little slush fund is like, oh, we got to pay somebody off, and we can do it to make it a secret payoff or not very public, where our own city's chief financial officer doesn't even know about that. Could you imagine, like, if Exxon, paid somebody lots of money and the head of Exxon's finances wasn't even told about it? That's absurd.
I completely agree. Eric, before being a political analyst, you're a political consultant. I can imagine somebody calling you up for advice about this. If Mayor Hancock calls you up for advice saying, should he actually push for an investigation, like Patty said, because that might stop all the dripping we've been hearing from the last few weeks, is that, should he support that actually happening from the council?
It depends what he knows that I, in this hypothetical scenario as his advisor, don't know. It depends, what is out there that an investigation is going to uncover. I can't answer that generically. I think you have to answer it in the situation. First of all, credit to Patty. Some of us last week said, the dripping, the faucet was slowly turning off on this, and Patty said, no, there are plenty more drips in that faucet, and I think the faucet is still running quite nicely on this story, and I think that's the real danger to Michael Hancock, is that the story doesn't seem to end. The settlement angle, the Wayne McDonald, that he wouldn't have settled for $200,000 if he had known these other pieces at the time, is an interesting angle that I assume it gets litigated in court, or at least argued between attorneys, and maybe they have to dig back into the slush fund to sweeten the $200,000 pot, but that would be done this time presumably with Tony Kovaleski and a bunch of other reporters all over it, that would be done in broad daylight, and then the faucet is running at full volume. I think there's a potential here for the story to morph a little bit, as Patty and David both referenced, and maybe it becomes a little less about the sexual innuendo and whatever else, harassment, and it morphs into a story about financial management at City Hall and where these settlements are being paid for and what unaccounted taxpayer money is out there that's getting thrown away to deal with private misbehavior. And that is a story that could have long legs and that no incumbent wants.
Yeah, there's plenty of issues in Denver to be talking about besides the intrigue in City Hall and different harassment and settlement claims. But do you think we'll see more headlines about this in the future, seeing what we've seen this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And I think this is clouding the talk about other issues. I mean, I was flipping through the AM dials the other day, and I heard a talk show host say that this is clearly evidence why Hancock's in the pocket of developers, because they're protecting him from even greater sexual liaison stories coming out. And just to hear that makes you think people are attacking Hancock from all angles, from the far left, from the far right. He's not doing anything that a lot of groups want him to do right now, but he's still got a big agenda. He's got a real big agenda about how to make sure the growth of this city goes well and not overdone and not stopped. And he I think he really needs to get this out of the way to continue back to that agenda. And so I think we're going to see more about it, and he might be more willing to come out and talk about these things, the reference to, the investigation, if it'll clear this off the plate and he can get back to doing what he's been doing for the last few years.